Good morning from the National Weather Service in Raleigh. This is Nick Petro with your 11:30 Sunday, September 1st update regarding Hurricane Dorian and its possible future impacts on central North Carolina. So I wanted to start off the briefing this morning with a quick update on, and this just came in from the bulletin here from the National Hurricane Center, the 11 o'clock advisory. A couple headlines I wanted to call your attention to. Dorian becomes the strongest hurricane in modern records for the northwestern Bahamas. It's a Category 5 with maximum sustained winds, of 180 miles per hour. So I'm sure those gusts are approaching or perhaps even exceeding 200 miles an hour, and catastrophic conditions occurring in the Abacos Islands. So, this is a big deal, obviously. Category 5, it doesn't get any stronger than that category. So, likelihood is increasing, and we'll show that here in just a minute, that central North Carolina will see some sorts of impacts. It's a huge storm. It's powerful. As it makes its way northward, of course, as they weaken, their wind fields spread out. So, it's going to be hard for us to not have any sort of impacts from this here in central North Carolina. Our threat level graphic here shows, and again, these are going to need adjusted as we get a little closer. Confidence is increasing that we're going to feel impacts here. Probably the worst of the impacts will be rainfall. I'm thinking we'll probably have to bump up that wind bar there to indicate increasing threat. So basically, again, the track has trended in the last couple of days, I should say, a little bit east. But all of central North Carolina remains at risk from impacts. And again, now's the time to get ready. And that's why we're all on this briefing, right? We're all here to get ready and work together as a team for protection of life and property. So thank you for joining us on this briefing today. All right, so this graphic here shows the probability of tropical storm force winds and their timing, the earliest reasonable timing. And basically the takeaway from this slide is that we have increasing probabilities that we will see tropical storm force winds here in central North Carolina. So, approaching 50%. And again, given the strength of Dorian, and as it begins to move northward and begin to weaken, it should begin to expand out. It's pretty much a good solid bet we're going to have tropical storm force winds here. When? Perhaps as early as late Wednesday. I think the worst of it will happen from Wednesday night through at least the first half of the day on Thursday. So think about having all kinds of preparations done by late Tuesday, because conditions will go downhill Wednesday. The winds will pick up on Wednesday, late Wednesday, and then Wednesday night into Thursday is when it's going to be the windiest and the heaviest rain. All right, so that's the timing. Again, late Wednesday night, and all day Thursday, things are going to not be so good. All right. So this is the rainfall forecast. Normally I show this during our weekly briefings, but I think it's instructive to show this just so you can see, when we're going to get our dry weather before and after the storm. And you'll see that Monday and Tuesday look dry for us, as does Friday and Saturday. So, we're going to have dry weather today, mostly dry. If you get sort of east of I-95, there could be a few showers, but nothing terribly heavy. For most of central North Carolina, it'll be dry today. Of course, dry all of central North Carolina on Monday and Tuesday. And then Wednesday and Thursday is when we expect the rain from Dorian. And then for recovery efforts to clean up all those downed trees, that'll be Friday, and Saturday should be dry. So how much? We're talking a total of 2 to 6 inches of rain across central North Carolina, Wednesday through Thursday. And those amounts would typically not be a big deal for river flooding, but would be more of an issue for localized poor drainage, short-fused, short-lasting urban and poor drainage flooding. Now, again, forecast changes will likely occur over the next several days. It could go up or it could go down, depending on the exact track. My gut tells me it's probably not going to go down much, if any. I think there's a better chance it could go up. So anyway, obviously the highest rainfall amounts will remain closer to the center, closer to the middle of the storm. But that's why you have the 6 to 10 painted there, well east of I-95 along and east of Highway 17, where you see that 6 to 10. Okay, so again, 2 to 6 is nothing to blow off. across central North Carolina. I will point out that our friends in the Triad won't see much rain. Let me back up here. Our friends in the Triad, Winston-Salem, High Point, Greensboro, and our friends back down towards Charlotte and Wadesboro, and, Anson, Stanley County. You're probably not going to get a whole lot of rain out of this. This might be underdone for you folks west of the Triangle and west of US 1. You might get an inch of rain, but certainly nothing that's going to cause any major problems. However, let me also show you that the cone is pretty wide, as it typically is on days 4 and 5. And I want to point out the different scenarios, different possible scenarios, because remember what the cone means. The cone means where the center of the storm may track, okay? That doesn't mean where the impacts may be felt. If there was a cone of impacts, it would be much, much bigger than the cone you see here, okay? Because impacts can be felt far away from the center. This is just where the center may go, okay? So anyway, the current forecast track has the center going where you see the orange arrow, okay? And if the center of Dorian takes a track right along the Carolina coast, like it's forecast to do right now, then central North Carolina could see light to moderate rain and tropical storm strength wind gusts, mainly from the Triangle south and eastward. Minor localized poor drainage flooding and scattered down trees would be possible. Much worse and much more dire conditions would exist closer to the North Carolina immediate coast. Okay, now so we're just talking central North Carolina here. Now, if the track were to go further east and take the eastern side of that cone, then the yellow arrow, then that means central North Carolina would have minimal impacts, or perhaps even none at all if it goes that far east. On the flip side, if it tracks along the western side of that cone, where I have the red arrow, that's a much more worse conditions for us here in central North Carolina. We would see bands of heavy rain that could lead to not only poor drainage flooding, but there would be heavier amounts of rain that would perhaps lead to river flooding. Okay, so again, if it hugs or stays on the left side of that cone, like the red arrow, then that's a much more worse conditions for us here in the central part of the state. An inland track would also bring more prolonged period of tropical storm strength winds and more widespread down trees and power lines. So, and of course, there's always an isolated tornado risk, mainly along and east of the low center. All right, so those are the possible scenarios. And that's why, the key point here is we need to stay tuned to updates from the National Hurricane Center and from us, because, there's still a lot of uncertainty in those days 4 and 5 as the exact track could change. All right, so I wanted to sort of purposely not including any river information here in this briefing because it's just too soon. 2 to 6 inches of rain isn't going to cause a lot of issues. It's not going to cause a lot of issues on the Noose or the Cape Fear or or up on the Tar or with those rainfall amounts. But certainly if you get more than that, then we'd be looking at potential for greater risk of river flooding. Now, those rivers I mentioned could be obviously impacted further east, closer to the coast, where there will also be impacts from storm surge as well. So the rivers are not completely. I don't mean to minimize the risk for rivers. I'm just saying at this point, river risks would be higher, obviously closer to the coast. All right. So here's the key takeaways for this briefing. There's potential for tropical storm strength wind gusts late Wednesday through Thursday, which could blow over to the trees, power outages, and that'll be mainly east of the US 1 corridor. The highest winds are expected Thursday afternoon and evening, although it could turn gusty as early as Wednesday evening. All right, and then rainfall amounts right now, we're expecting 2 to 6 inches, highest east, lesser amounts west, and that could result in localized poor drainage, urban flooding. Highest rainfall amounts will occur east of I-95. Timing for this is Wednesday through Thursday. If the forecast trends worse and we end up getting higher rain amounts, then the risk for subsequent river flooding will increase. All right, and then finally, tornadoes would occur mainly east of I-95, closer to and east of the center of the storm track, and that would be late Wednesday through Thursday. All right, so that wraps up this morning's webinar. And we will update these slides and email them Well, first of all, I'll email the slides that I just showed here as soon as we wrap up here. I'll email that out, and then I will also email an update. Our evening crew will email an update to these slides this evening. And then I've already emailed out the webinar schedule. We'll do a webinar like this tomorrow morning, same time, 11:30, and we'll have subsequent webinars and email updates throughout the course of the storm.